As we grow older, peace of mind becomes more valuable than ever. After 60, your time and energy are sacred, yet some family members seem to ignore that. Instead of bringing comfort or support, they leave you feeling drained, anxious, or even guilty after every interaction. The truth is, not all relationships age gracefully. Some become more harmful than helpful, and it's okay to recognize that. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. In this video, we're breaking down 6 types of relatives you may need to avoid or distance yourself from after 60. These aren't about cutting people off cold. It's about protecting your well-being, your independence, and your happiness in this important chapter of life. And trust me, number 5 might completely change how you see caregiving. 1. The drama queen relative. There's always one, the family member who turns every family gathering into a soap opera. Someone always upset, always overwhelmed, always in the middle of some crisis. Welcome to the world of the drama queen relative, a person who lives in a whirlwind of emotional chaos and seems to want you right there with them. At 60 and beyond, your energy becomes a non-renewable resource. You don't have the luxury of constant emotional turbulence. And yet, these relatives have a way of hijacking your peace with their endless stories, their exaggerated problems, and their hunger for attention. Sometimes they call just to vent. Other times they pull you into conflicts that have nothing to do with you. They want you to pick sides, offer opinions, listen endlessly, and feel emotionally responsible for whatever fire they've lit this time. And when it's over, you're left feeling depleted, like you've just survived a storm you never asked to be in. But here's the kicker. This is not just annoying, it's unhealthy. Chronic emotional stress has real, physical consequences, especially as we age. According to research, prolonged stress contributes to high blood pressure, insomnia, digestive problems, weakened immunity, and even memory issues. Emotional drama may feel like just family stuff, but it can quietly erode your health from the inside out. Real talk. Why it affects you more after 60. When we're younger, we often have the energy to absorb a bit of drama. We shake it off. But after 60, your nervous system doesn't bounce back the way it used to. What was once just a rough afternoon can now throw off your sleep for days, trigger anxiety, or leave you too exhausted to enjoy the things you love, like a walk, a book, or a chat with someone who actually lifts your spirits. You don't owe anyone your peace just because you share DNA. Practical wisdom: how to handle the drama queen spot. The pattern: recognize who brings chaos into your life. Ask yourself, do I feel lighter or heavier after talking to this person? Don't try to fix them. You are not their therapist. You are not responsible for their reactions. Often drama queens don't want solutions, they want an audience. Set firm boundaries. Be clear and calm. I'm not in the emotional space for this right now. Let's talk when things settle down. I'm happy to catch up, but I'd prefer we keep things peaceful. Boundaries protect your health. You're not being rude, you're being wise. Limit contact if needed. If they refuse to respect your space, it's okay to create distance. You can reduce how often you pick up the phone, how long you stay at family events, or how much you engage in their issues. Protect your energy rituals. Create buffers before and after interactions. A short walk, deep breathing, or listening to music can help reset your mood. Think of it as putting on emotional armor. Don't feel guilty. You're allowed to outgrow relationships that drain you. Saying no to chaos is saying yes to your health. Final thought for this type. You've earned the right to peace, calm, and meaningful connection. You are not a supporting character in someone else's emotional circus. You've lived enough life to know that peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. So give yourself permission to step back from anyone who constantly stirs the storm. You've done your share of emotional heavy lifting in life. Now is your time to rest, reflect, and rise. 2. The money leech relative. Let's talk about one of the most uncomfortable topics in family dynamics: money. Or more specifically, the family member who keeps asking for it. You know the one. They always seem to be in a bind, always have an emergency, and always expect you to save the day. Again. This is the money leech relative. And after 60, this type of relationship can quietly become one of the most draining and dangerous you'll ever face. At first, it may feel like helping, They say things like, just this once, or I'll pay you back soon. But it's never just once, and the payback rarely happens. What does happen is a slow erosion of your financial security, your boundaries, and sometimes even your self-worth. Why it's more harmful. After 60. In your 30s or 40s, you may have had the income to absorb the occasional bailout. But after retirement or semi-retirement, you're likely living on fixed income, pensions, savings, or social security. Every dollar counts. Every financial decision matters. What might have once been a small loan becomes a direct threat to your independence. Over time, helping can turn into being used. The burden shifts from financial to emotional, especially when guilt enters the equation. They say things like, I thought you cared. You have more than I do. Your family. Who else can I turn to? These phrases are loaded with emotional manipulation, and unfortunately they often work, especially on kind, generous people who were raised to put family first. But here's the truth. Being generous doesn't mean being exploited. Real consequences of constant lending drained savings that could have covered medical care, home repairs, travel, or simply your own peace of mind. Resentment, not just toward the person asking, but toward other relatives who don't contribute. Hidden shame. You may start to feel embarrassed about being taken, but also afraid to speak up and seem cold-hearted. Damaged relationships. Money can turn love sour if the imbalance isn't acknowledged, and the hardest part, it never seems to end. People who rely on guilt to get money often don't change. They get better at asking. Practical wisdom. How to handle the money leech. Be honest about your limits. You don't need to justify. Just say, I'm not in a position to help financially right now. I've planned my retirement carefully and I need to stick to it. Kind, clear, and firm. Offer alternatives. Instead of money, offer help finding resources. Point them to job leads, financial assistance programs, or community services. Helping doesn't always mean handing over cash. Create a policy, not a one-time response. Decide, will you lend money at all? If yes, how much, how often, and under what terms? And most importantly, stick to your rules. Don't co-sign or use your credit. Even if they beg, protect your credit score and your legal liability. Once you put your name on something, their problem becomes your problem legally and financially. Track what you've given. Keep a private list. It's not petty, it's smart. It helps you see the pattern clearly and validate your feelings if guilt starts creeping in. Speak to a financial advisor. If you feel uncertain, talk to a professional about how much help is safe without jeopardizing your retirement goals. Wisdom nugget. You've spent decades working, saving, budgeting, and planning for your future. That money is not a family emergency fund. It's your lifeline. It's your freedom to live without worry. Don't trade that freedom for a temporary fix to someone else's bad planning or habits. Final thought for this type. Saying no to financial abuse doesn't make you heartless. It makes you wise. You are not selfish for protecting your nest egg. You are not cruel for refusing to enable someone else's cycle of poor choices. In fact, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and even for them is to stop being the safety net they refuse to build for themselves. Let your golden years be exactly that, golden, not drained. 3. The always right relative. They mean well, at least that's what they always say. They offer advice constantly, whether you asked for it or not. They correct you in front of others. They challenge your opinions, question your decisions, and present their version of life as the only right way to live. This is the always right relative, the family member who positions themselves as the authority on everything from your health to your hobbies to how you manage your time. And if you dare disagree, they'll make you feel like you're not just wrong, you're foolish. The hidden cost of always being corrected. Dealing with this kind of relative after 60 isn't just irritating, it is damaging to your confidence and mental clarity. Over time, it can make you second-guess yourself. You begin to wonder, am I making the wrong choices? Maybe they know better than I do. I must not be doing this aging thing right. But here's the truth, you've lived enough life to know what works for you. You don't need someone, especially a younger family member, constantly undermining your judgment under the guise of help. Aging doesn't mean you become incapable. It means you carry wisdom, perspective, and a lived experience no book or lecture can teach. Why it hurts more. As you get older. The older we get, the more we value autonomy, the ability to make decisions for ourselves. Whether it's about where to live, what to eat, or how to spend your time, that independence becomes a cornerstone of your dignity. When someone repeatedly challenges that autonomy, even with good intentions, it chips away at your sense of control. It is not just about the topic. They're re-suggesting you were not capable of thinking clearly, and that's insulting. Even worse, these relatives rarely listen. They offer advice not out of empathy, but out of ego. They want to be right, not helpful. Practical wisdom. How to deal with the know-it-all. Validate yourself. First, before engaging, remind yourself, I've made decisions for decades. I know my values, my limits, and what brings me joy. That inner confidence matters. Interrupt the pattern. When they start to lecture, calmly say, I appreciate your opinion, but I'm confident in my choice. Thanks, but I've got it handled. Let's agree to see things differently. Limit topics of vulnerability. Don't give them fuel. If they always nitpick your health, don't bring up your doctor visits. If they judge your lifestyle, steer the conversation elsewhere. Refuse the power struggle. You don't need to win. You need peace. Let them be right in their own head while you live freely by your own values. Use the broken record strategy. Repeat your boundary in the same calm tone every time. I hear you. I'm choosing differently. This trains them over time that you're not a pushover. Build a circle that honors you. Surround yourself with people who support your choices, not question them. Even a few close friends who truly listen can rebalance the energy that this type of relative drains. Wisdom. Nugget. There is no universal right way to grow older. Some people run marathons at 70. Others spend quiet afternoons in the garden. Some travel. Others stay rooted. All are valid. The only right path is the one that brings you peace, fulfillment, and connection. You don't need to earn approval for how you live your life. You just need to trust yourself. Final thought for this type. You've earned the right to define your own version of a good life. The always right relative may never change, but you don't have to let their voice overpower your own. You are not a problem to be corrected. You are a person to be respected. 4. The guilt trip relative. They don't yell, they don't demand, but somehow you always end up doing what they want, because if you don't, the guilt eats at you for days. This is the guilt trip relative, a master of emotional manipulation wrapped in soft language and sad expressions. They don't ask outright, they imply, they sigh. They drop subtle phrases designed to press your emotional buttons. I just thought you'd be there for me. After everything I've done for you, I guess I just expected more. Suddenly, you're doing favors you never agreed to, sacrificing your time or energy, and wondering how you got talked into something that doesn't feel right. Why it's so damaging after 60. Guilt is a powerful tool, especially in families where loyalty and sacrifice are prized. But in the later chapters of life, guilt becomes a burden you no longer have room to carry. This is the time to enjoy the life you've built, not live under obligation. The guilt trip. Relative thrives on making you feel responsible for their emotions. They don't want your no, they want your submission, and they'll dress it up in phrases that sound caring but are actually controlling. Over time, constantly giving in leads to emotional fatigue, growing resentment, a loss of personal autonomy, suppressed anger that eats away at your inner peace. And worst of all, you begin to feel like you're the bad one for simply saying no. But let's be clear, boundaries are not betrayals. Practical wisdom. How to disarm the guilt. Name the tactic. Silently. The moment you recognize a guilt trip, pause. Say to yourself, this is guilt, not love. That alone breaks the emotional trance. Respond with neutral firmness. I understand you're disappointed, but I've made my decision. I care about you, but I have to do what's right for me. Stay calm. Don't explain too much. That opens the door to more manipulation. Don't apologize for prioritizing yourself. You are allowed to choose rest over obligation, joy over duty. Saying no is not selfish, it's self-respect. Use delay tactics. If pressured, let me think about it and get back to you. This gives you space to breathe and decide without pressure. Flip the mirror. Ask questions like, would you feel good if I said yes just to avoid guilt? Do you really want me to do this if I'm not okay with it? These reflect the manipulation back at them without hostility. Create standard responses for repeated requests. If they keep pushing the same favor over time, have a go-to phrase. Like I mentioned before, I'm not able to do that. Repetition is key. They'll eventually understand you're not budging. Wisdom nugget. You don't owe anyone a yes that costs you your peace. The love you give freely, when it comes from your heart, not from guilt, is worth so much more than any forced obligation. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not silent resentment. Guilt has a way of chaining us to people-pleasing patterns that are hard to break. But you can break them, and when you do, you'll feel a wave of liberation you didn't know you were missing. Final thought for this type. You're not selfish for having limits, you're not cold for protecting your time, and you're certainly not ungrateful for living your life on your terms. The guilt trip. Relative may never fully understand why you say no. That's okay, you're not living for their approval. You're living for your own well-being. The toxic caretaker relative. It sounds like a blessing. A family member who wants to help, who checks in often, handles errands, drives you to appointments, maybe even manages some of your paperwork. On the surface, they seem like the ideal caregiver, kind, attentive, selfless. But something feels off. Maybe they interrupt your decisions. Maybe they speak for you even when you don't ask. Maybe they've started to act like your life is theirs to manage. This is the toxic caretaker relative, and they can be the most dangerous of all. Because unlike the drama seeker or the guilt tripper, this type hides behind the mask of help. They don't raise red flags immediately. In fact, they often make others say, you're lucky to have them. But you don't feel lucky. You feel trapped. The difference between helping and controlling healthy support empowers you. It helps you live more freely and independently. Toxic caretaking, on the other hand, erodes your autonomy. Over time, you stop making your own decisions, not because you can't, but because someone else already made them for you. They might. Speak to doctors on your behalf without asking. Take over financial decisions, just to make things easier. Rearrange your schedule without your input. Correct you in front of others, as if you're confused or incapable. Use phrases like, trust me, I know what's best for you. And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself. Even if you're fully mentally capable, you start second-guessing simple choices. You feel like you have to ask permission for your own life. That is not care. That is quiet control. Why it's so dangerous? As you age, society already tends to treat you as less capable. Add a controlling relative into the mix, and you risk losing your legal, financial, emotional, and even physical independence. In extreme cases, toxic caretakers can gain access to your bank accounts, make medical decisions against your will, isolate you from other relatives, manipulate you into giving them power of attorney. Even when they don't go that far, the emotional toll is deep. You may feel infantilized, silenced, or emotionally cornered. And because it's family, it's easy to stay silent out of loyalty or fear. Practical wisdom: how to reclaim your independence. Name the pattern. Say it to yourself clearly. This person is overstepping. This isn't help, it's control. Reassert your voice. Speak directly. I appreciate your support, but I want to make my own decisions. Please don't speak for me. That's something I can handle myself. Clarify the type of help you actually want. Make a list. I'm okay with rides to the doctor. I don't need help managing my medication. Share it if needed. Keep documentation. If they're accessing finances, speaking to doctors, or interfering with legal matters, document what's happening. Keep a record. It may become vital. Build a wider support network. Don't rely on just one person. Bring in friends, community groups, or professionals. Isolation breeds dependency. Connection restores freedom. Seek legal protection if necessary. If things escalate, consult a lawyer about power of attorney, will protections, or revoking access. Your autonomy is not up for negotiation. Don't be afraid to say no. You are allowed to say, "I don't want your help in that area." Full stop. Wisdom. Nugget. True care uplifts. It listens, supports, respects. It does not override, silence, or suffocate. It's okay to need help, but that help should feel like a ladder, not a leash. You've lived a full life. You still carry strength, choice, and voice. Anyone who makes you feel otherwise is not helping. They're harming. Final thought for this type. This may be the hardest boundary to set because it's often dressed as love, but you deserve more than control disguised as concern. You deserve a life where you still lead, even if others walk beside you. Reclaim your voice, reclaim your say. Your life is still yours. 6. The perfect image relative. They're always put together. Their home is spotless. Their social media is a highlight reel of beach vacations, smiling family portraits, perfectly plated dinners, and grandkids winning awards. They never seem to age, never seem to struggle. And every time you talk to them, you walk away wondering, am I falling behind? This is the perfect image relative, the one who always looks like they have it all figured out. And if you're not careful, their curated perfection can start to chip away at your self-worth. The subtle toxicity of comparison. On the surface, this type of relative isn't cruel or demanding. In fact, they may even be polite and cheerful. But their constant display of success and flawlessness can stir something toxic. Comparison. You start measuring your retirement lifestyle against their vacations, your home against their interior design, your health against their yoga routines, your family against their smiling grandchildren. And no matter how much you've accomplished or how content you were yesterday, you begin to feel inadequate, like you've fallen short. That feeling, it is not a sign that you were behind, it is a sign that you've been trapped in someone else's highlight reel. Why this hurts after 60. In the later chapters of life, many people naturally reflect on their journey, what they've done, what they've missed, what still matters. The last thing you need in that sacred process is external pressure to perform or compare. The perfect image. Relative often triggers shame about how you've lived, pressure to prove something to others, frustration about things you can't go back and change, anxiety that your life doesn't look good enough on paper. But let's pause and remember, perfection is almost always performative. The curated image they present may be far from their reality. Behind those smiling posts might be loneliness, debt, stress, or strained relationships they'll never share publicly. Comparison is the thief of joy, especially when you carry comparing your truth to someone else's illusion. Practical wisdom, how to stay grounded in your own life. Limit exposure to performance spaces. If their social media or constant updates leave you drained, mute them. You don't have to unfollow, just unplug from the pressure. Redefine what success means now. At 60 plus, success might look like waking up without pain, enjoying a quiet breakfast, spending time with people who listen to you saying no without guilt. These are victories too. Celebrate your unique journey. Reflect on where you've come from, what you've overcome, and what wisdom you carry that no one else can claim. You're not behind, you're seasoned. Practice gratitude over envy. For every perfect picture they post, find one thing in your life you're deeply grateful for. Gratitude resets your emotional compass. Avoid the game of shoulds. I should have done more, and I should look better. I should have more to show. These are mental traps. Replace should with I choose. Speak kindly to yourself. Imagine talking to your younger self. Would you shame them for not being perfect, or would you say you did your best and I'm proud of you? That's the voice you need now. Wisdom nugget. The truest, richest lives are not the ones that look best from the outside. They're the ones that feel most honest on the inside. Let others curate their perfection. You focus on curating peace. Comparison fades when confidence takes root. Final thought for this type. The perfect image. Relative may never drop the act. That's okay. You don't need to compete. You don't need to prove. You are enough exactly as you are. Your worth is not measured in filters, achievements, or outside applause. You measure it in contentment, authenticity, and the quiet strength that comes from living life on your terms. Not every family relationship deserves unlimited access to your time, your energy, or your peace. After 60, protecting your mental, emotional, and financial health is not selfish, it's essential. Whether it's drama, guilt, control, or quiet comparison, some relatives drain more than they give. And that's okay to acknowledge. Your golden years are not a rehearsal, they're your reward. So take the space you need, set the boundaries you deserve. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to protect your peace. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. What would you add to the list? Until next time, take care and choose peace.